One of the biggest opportunities we can miss when it comes to leading volunteers is training them regularly. Like a lot of us, we think about volunteer training. I think about when I was trained as a volunteer in my church. And you think of like once a year, twice a year, something like that. But training could be a lot more than that. So we're going to talk about how to train volunteers weekly. And volunteer training should not just be an event a couple times a year. Those are good. And there's other videos I'll have that I'll link in the description below, and you can check out the playlist on training for information about how to do big training events well, how to get people to come, like what's the content you should share. All that matters, but it shouldn't just be a big event once or twice a year. It should be a lot more than that. It should be a regular occurrence all year long, ideally weekly. So let's talk about what that can look like. So the key to training weekly is having volunteer huddles, because you have to have some way to deliver the training. Now, certainly you could, do YouTube videos and send a link out every week, right? You could do that. But how many people will actually watch it? You know what I mean? Like not as many as you would like. Maybe 20%. I don't even know if that you get 20% to watch them weekly. And probably like a mix, like 20% see some video once a month. But that's not nearly enough. What you can do instead is have volunteer huddles. And we have separate videos that you can watch about volunteer huddles that'll be coming out soon if they're not already out by the time you're watching this. So, see those to see more about volunteer huddles and how to start them and what they should look like. But one piece of a volunteer huddle can be training. I mean, a huddle is just a short gathering of your volunteers before they serve. I say about 15 minutes. A lot of times ours in my church are 10 minutes. We'll meet 30 minutes before the service. Let's say it's kids ministry. Let's say the service is 9 a.m. We'll meet at 8:30 for 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, but then we got to open doors for the service, right? So we can't meet 30 minutes. If you like our student ministry, will meet a half hour before, and because they have other volunteers that are out there, kind of like kids ministry, doing check-in and some things like that, they can go a little bit longer. So if they wanted, they could have a 20-minute huddle. You might have, I've seen churches that have a 30-minute huddle. I don't know if I would do that. That's a lot. The whole point of a huddle is it's kind of like a football huddle, which if you don't know football, they're standing up, and a huddle in football is typically like 10 seconds. So this is not going to be 10 seconds, but 10 minutes, 15 minutes, that's kind of ideal. Take 3 to 5 of those minutes out of that schedule each week to train volunteers. So this isn't the entire point of the huddle. The huddle should have other elements, but it could be a key part of that huddle every single week. So create a plan for what you will train on over the next 3 to 6 months. That's what you want to do if you want to train volunteers weekly. Look at your calendar and think, okay, if I can get volunteers coming to a huddle every week, even if they only serve once every other week or once a month or something like that, you can still build your plan that way. So you might, if they only serve every other week, you might only cover 2 topics that month, right? You do that topic, week 1 and 2, it's the same topic. Week 3 and 4, it's the same topic. That way everybody's getting the same thing. But look at your calendar and plan out 3 to 6 months of huddle content. And the reason you can do that is because, again, it's going to be bite-sized. So if you use a book, for example, and break it down into 12 to 24 small pieces each week, that could easily last 6 months, 3 months, 6 months for sure. And if you're doing every other week, so it's kind of the same thing, back-to-back weeks, it could last even longer. So you don't have to spend a lot of time and energy and effort in creating this. The key is to spread it out. And the other thing I would say is there's a temptation, as I'm talking about this, you might be thinking, man, I have to create that content. Ideally, no. You want to find something like a book, and you could literally have, like, whoever's leading the huddle could read a page or a portion or something like that at the huddle, where your volunteers aren't even required to read it. Now, I think it's great if you got the book and everybody got the book and they read it together. That would be awesome. But that's kind of different than the idea here, which is low cost, low investment, low impact, low prep way to train volunteers. So you get the book, let's say, and you break it down into those small pieces. You could also get a video, have them watch it. Again, that's a little bit on the more prep side. I don't love that, but you could have them watch it at home and then you talk about it in the huddle. Keep in mind, you could watch, I'm thinking of a specific training video we've done before. The video itself is like 6 minutes. I would be fine, and we did this, one, watching it there and talking about it. So that would take longer than 3 to 5 minutes, but that would be fine because it was 6 minutes long. I'd also be fine if we had them watch it for 6 minutes and then we talked about it for 4 weeks, right? So they're not rewatching a different video every week. They're gonna watch one video. We talk about it over the next month. And then they watch the next video and we talk about that one for the next month. Same thing with an article. You could read it there, if it's short enough, or you read it in pieces. You read the first part, week 1, and second part, week 2, and then discuss some questions together about that. Whatever you use for content, it's helpful if you can create a huddle guide or a sheet that you can hand out. And it's like, here's the questions we're talking about. Or even if it's just for your leaders, like if you're leading the huddle, then maybe you'll create whatever you need. But if you are empowering other people to lead your volunteer huddles, which I would encourage, especially if you have more than 10 volunteers serving at a time, get other people to lead those huddles and give them the huddle guide and the sheet for leading that. So as with huddles in general, this is just a general principle, probably for all kinds of things, huddles, volunteer trainings, all of that stuff. Hold people accountable for attending. So if you show up to a huddle one week and you notice Lisa's not there, next week when you see Lisa, hey, we missed you last week at the volunteer huddle. Is everything okay? And my kind of approach to that is I don't necessarily do that if you just miss one, because people are going to miss all the time for different reasons, right? But if you miss 2, I'm going to ask. And then if you're missing 3, 4, 5 minutes, if you're just missing them all the time, that's a hard conversation about, hey, are you going to be able to serve in this role? Because this is part of the expectation. It's not just a bonus or anything. Check out ministryboost.org for our huddle course. We have a course on launching huddles if you want to check that out, as well as a huddle archive. The huddle archive is 9 months, I think it's more now, maybe over a year's worth of huddle content. So like you don't have to actually plan your first 3 to 6 months. You can use what we created. It's just taken from a couple different books. And so you could get the book, get the huddle archive, and then use that to kind of jumpstart this process for you as you kind of get a plan going to train weekly. Also, watch the next video about creating a year-long strategy for training volunteers, because training them weekly is a piece of it, and it's usually a piece that's missing for most people, but it's not the only piece. Those big gatherings where you get people together are helpful, and talking about specific things monthly are helpful as well. And so all of that is covered in that video about how to train your volunteers with a year-long strategy. So check that out next.